why did the chief Pakistani mediator, who happens to be the head of the Pakistani army, which is the power base in Pakistan, the mediator between the U.S. and Iran, report on the mediations in person to President Xi in China?
Because China is the guarantor of everything that Pakistan is mediating. I'm not sure this is well understood in Washington or across the Beltway. Everything that Pakistan is doing, and it's a Sisyphean task of trying to bridge the gap between the Trump administration, the Gulf petromonarchies, Iran, and of course, China in the background. It's not an act, on the contrary. Earlier this week, we had a very, very important meeting in Beijing after Xi and Trump and after Xi and Putin. This was before Xi and a high-level Pakistani delegation. The Prime Minister, Field Marshal Asim Munir, their foreign minister, everybody was there. Of course, they were discussing many issues, including the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, which is part of the Belt and Road Initiative and all that. But the most important thing was, of course, the Pakistani mediation with Iran. And, of course, the Chinese were listening face-to-face from Asim Munir what he has been discussing with the Iranians and his mediating efforts with the Americans. This is the most important geopolitical alliance at the moment, trying to solve the Iran riddle, the Iran-US riddle. It's the Pakistani mediation totally backed up by China.
Does any deal between the U.S. and Pakistan require the de facto, not de jure, the de facto approval of China and Russia?
Of course. And in fact, this is what the interlocking strategic partnerships between Iran, Russia, and China have been discussing face to face in these past meetings. And of course, with the Pakistani input, including this Pakistani trip to Beijing, that the guarantors of a possible post-memorandum of understanding negotiation, which the negotiators, they say this could last between 30 and 60 days. It could be much, much longer than that. But this is their, I would say, optimistic assumption. The guarantors from the Iranian side are going to be China and Russia. And this is something that the Trump administration has to be, first of all, has to understand the geopolitical and diplomatic and military implications, and understand that Iran is not negotiating by itself. Iran is negotiating from the point of view of an alliance of three top BRICS nations: Iran, Russia, and China. And apparently, to say that being very diplomatic is still, they still don't get it in Washington.
Will Iran agree to any deal with the United States that fails to restrain Israel from slaughtering civilians, innocents, and stealing land in Gaza, West Bank, and Lebanon?
Absolutely not. And that's one of the main problems, Judge, of the road, the path towards the memorandum of understanding, which is something that could be signed in the next few days or until middle of next week, let's put it this way. And then the negotiations leading to a possible final deal. Iran has been saying over and over again from the beginning. First of all, our number one demand: all wars in West Asia have to cease. This means the war by Israel and U.S. against Iran, and the war of Israel and the U.S. against the axis of resistance as a whole, including, of course, in Lebanon, where, as we speak, the Israelis are once again bombing everything in sight in southern Lebanon, completely illegally, against any formal or informal basis of international law, and there's not a peep from the so-called international community, much less the UN. So this is a number one condition. All wars have to cease, and that includes, of course, the Israeli war against Lebanon. The problem is, even assuming we would get to a negotiation, a direct negotiation, after the memorandum of understanding between U.S. and Iran, What if Israel continues to attack and kill civilians all over the place across southern Lebanon?
Which you know they will.
Which we all know, Judge, they will. So what will be, and this is something that I pose, this is a question that I pose directly to some of the negotiators. My last column, I built the column based on inputs from China, Pakistan, and Iran. And after that, after I published the column, I asked 3 questions to the negotiators on the table. And my sources told me, look, they answer your questions in an indirect way. But one of the key questions was, even assuming we get to the path towards a deal, a possible deal after the memorandum of understanding, what if Israel continues to attack Lebanon? The Iranians can tell the U.S., look, this is a completely different story. This is not between us and you. This is between us and Lebanon. So we're going to take care of it our own way. And what will be the response of the Trump administration? Nobody can answer this question.
Well, who could restrain Israel? Can Trump restrain Netanyahu? Trump famously said, I think we played this clip for you last week, Netanyahu will do whatever I want him to. He said it twice in a brief, about 30-second clip. Is that true? Or is it the other way around, that Trump will do whatever Netanyahu wants him to do?
You're absolutely right, Judge. It's the other way around. And everybody knows that. I would say everybody from the Beltway and Washington and the Atlanticist coalitions to camels flying the ancient Silk Roads in Central Asia. Everybody knows that. Nothing can restrain Israel. And that's the problem. Because the whole global economy, for that matter, all of us and the whole global economy and the American economy, everybody is hostage to those lunatics running a state that is not a state, that is constantly expanding their borders, and their main strategy, short and long term, is to bomb the hell out of everyone they consider their enemies and annex lands that don't belong to them. The only possible restraining order against this regime would be, I would say, a devastating military victory against them. And the only ones who can pull that off is the Islamic Republic of Iran.
So you're effectively saying that all this negotiation, whoever's doing it, I don't know if Witkoff and Kushner are involved, if the president himself is doing it because he's such a micromanager. All these negotiations are for naught because of the inability to control Israel. Suppose Trump were to say to Netanyahu, that's it. No more money, no more military equipment. Would that restrain Israel?
No, it won't, Judge, because this goes way beyond Trump. Trump is just a messenger. Trump is a lowly grifter and a lowly messenger. This is all about the people who run Israel, the international Zionist axis, which is extremely powerful, not only in geopolitical terms, but in terms of the international financial system as well. There's no way to restrain them. And of course, they run the show. They run the show. And obviously, it was, I would say, a gift from the different layers of Indian heaven, let's put it this way, to be very diplomatic, that now they have a president that just follows their diktats because of sequential compromise of what he's done in the past, because of the donors that financed his re-election,
right,
because he's totally controlled by these interests, domestic and international, in terms of the Zionist international axis. And of course, it's very, very easy. It's totally controllable.
Does Washington, in your view, understand the role of China and Russia and the unique relationship that Pakistan has to both in this entire complex process?
No, they don't. In fact, what the Trump administration assumes that they are doing is instrumentalizing Pakistan to get concessions from Iran. This is what Trump and the circle around him think they are doing in terms of instrumentalizing Pakistan. But what's really happening on the table and in terms of negotiations is something completely different. So in my latest column, it took a lot of work, but I had to talk to sources from Pakistan, from Iran, and from China, and then compare what they were saying, and then trying to figure out their overall strategy. And they are all working together. The Russians are in the backseat for obvious reasons. And we all know, and of course, many of your guests on your show, very well informed, also know that the number one preoccupation in Russia is how to tweak the next stage of the special military operation. But the Russians are following the whole thing in the background, and of course, in close consultation with the Chinese. The Chinese, in this case, they are in the forefront. And that explains, for instance, not only what they discussed in the 2-hour tea ceremony in Beijing when Putin visited President Xi, when they discussed Ukraine, the United States, and Iran, and the visit of the high-level Pakistani delegation earlier this week to Beijing, where they explained to Wang Yi and to President Xi in detail what they are discussing with the Iranians, not to mention what the Iranians are discussing directly with the Chinese, because they have a strategic partnership. So they are all working together as realist, solid, realpolitik practitioners. This is immensely important. It's absolutely impossible for the very mediocre people around Trump 2.0 to understand how deep that is and how complex and how sophisticated that is. And the fact that they have a common policy that they discuss among themselves on a daily basis, and they tweak this policy on a daily basis. So essentially, the Chinese want a resolution. They want a ceasefire. They want the Strait of Hormuz to be, let's say, unblocked by all means on all sides, of course. And they want a peaceful resolution, and they want to be the guarantors of this possible peace resolution. And that's why this is so important, because this is not Pakistan mediating between the US and Iran. This is Pakistan mediating on behalf of China. Changes everything.
What does Trump want from Pakistan that Pakistan will not give him?
Wow, Judge, this is a $60 billion question. Absolutely. He would expect Pakistan to deliver to the Americans a semblance of a victory deal, extracting concessions from the Iranian leadership. This will never happen. Never happen.
And this all he cares about is a way out that he can plausibly claim is an American, therefore a Trumpian victory.
Absolutely correct. And this is when we heard from the negotiators from these three sides that are working together. The Chinese, the people that I talked to here in Shanghai, the Iranians, many of us are our friends, and the Pakistanis, which is something that I went through my old Pakistani connections, to get them on board again. And finally have the picture of how close they are, all of them are working together. From the Iranian point of view, they are not going to deliver anything to Trump, especially because this goes back to, not only destroying the former JCPOA, which was quite imperfect, but it was to a certain extent working. But the assassination it started with the assassination of General Soleimani, which defined the raging 20s, as I label it, the decade that we're living. The decade that we're living started with an assassination by the Americans of General Soleimani, which was the master tactician and strategist of this stretch of the 21st century. And of course, killing Ayatollah Khamenei, the leader, and for nothing, because Mojtaba Khamenei is as straightforward as his dad, and even more supported by the whole leadership of the IRGC. So this didn't change anything in terms of, okay, we're going to undermine the Islamic regime in Iran. No, you didn't. Basically, you fortified them to a position that they were not enjoying 3 months ago, for that matter. And the Pakistanis understood that, Judge. This is very important. The relationship between Iran and Pakistan, there were some ups and downs in the past few years, but now they totally understand, to the point, which is very important for you and for our audience to understand. Can you imagine that the Gwadar port in the Arabian Sea, which is part of the Chinese Silk Roads, it's the most important stretch of the China-Pakistan economic corridor, which goes from the northern Pakistan, from Xinjiang to northern Pakistan to the Arabian Sea, the port of Gwadar. Now it's a sister port of Chabahar in Iran, which is 80 kilometers away. And we have a Pakistani port working as an extra Iranian port as well. So we have we have this connectivity corridors in Eurasia, one of them from Russia to Iran and theoretically going to India. India is out of the picture as well. Now totally mixed with a Chinese connectivity corridor. So in terms of the geoeconomic rearrangement of the region, it's just something completely different. People could not even imagine 2 or 3 months ago that this would ever happen. So these relations are much, much closer. And China is behind all that because China has a very good partnership with Pakistan and strategic partnership with Iran at the same time. And China wants a peaceful, stable Eurasian continent. And that's exactly what Russia also wants. So from the point of view of the Trump administration, to understand how their absolutely lunatic actions are leading to this unwanted result, unwanted consequence, it's very hard for them to understand.
I want to play a clip from President Trump yesterday at his, his cabinet meeting, in which he makes a threat to Oman, and ask you what you think of this. Chris, cut number 2.
The strait's going to be open to everybody.
And who will control it?
It's international waters. Nobody's going to control it. We're going to watch over it. We'll watch over it, but nobody's going to control it. That's part of the negotiation that we have. They would like to control it. Nobody's going to control it. It's international waters, and Oman will behave just like everybody else, so we'll have to blow them up. They understand that. They'll be fine.
Why would an American president threaten to blow up an ally, particularly in that location and at this moment?
Judge, I'm really sorry, but sometimes we have to, it's mind-blowing, the ignorance and the stupidity coming from an assertion like that. First of all, the Strait of Hormuz is not international waters.
Correct.
First, it belongs to territorial waters of Iran in the north and territorial waters of Oman in the south. So he's lying from the start. And second, typical Trump reaction. I don't like you, so I'm going to blow you, or I'm going to bomb you, or whatever. Come on, this is not even childish. This is beyond stupid, really. Absurd. And the problem is, because he controls the news cycle all over the planet, he can say this intergalactic stupidities, and everybody is replaying it over and over again without checking the merits of what he said. Right. Not only the stupidity, but this uncontrollable aggression.
I have to play you another president and his mental degradation. You'll appreciate this. Mm-hmm. Cut number 7, Chris.
Making sure that we're able to make every single solitary person eligible for what I've been able to do with the with the COVID, with dealing with everything we had to do with, look, if we finally beat Medicare.
As I watched it, I thought, oh my God, he's having a stroke. And it scared me to death.
Were you horrified as you saw it unfold?
I wasn't horrified, I was frightened because I had never, ever seen Joe like that before or since. Never.
Or since?
Yes. Or
You've
since.
Never seen him like
never.
That?
No.
What happened?
I don't know what happened. I mean, as I watched it, I thought, oh my God, he's having a stroke. And it scared me to death.